Hi, this is Nigel Davey from SME Needs.
And I'm Laura McHarrie at The Hidden Edge, and this is one of our 10-minute business podcasts. Today, we're talking to Mark Saville, cybersecurity specialist at Data2Vault, who's got some cyber hacks he's going to share with us today. Excuse the pun.
Mark, it's great to have you on our podcast. We've known each other for a while through the For Business Golfing Network, and it's how you're approaching the rapidly changing cyber threat that makes a refreshing difference from many others in the market. Can you briefly tell us how you got involved in the cybersecurity industry?
Yeah, hi, Nigel and Laura. Thanks very much for inviting me on. So around about 1997, I found myself running a information security software distribution company, first wave of the internet, firewalls, antivirus. I then ended up running a managed service provider in the backup and DR space. And the kind of market seems to have come a complete circle now because if you're not really cyber protecting data, it's almost impossible to recover it. So the kind of markets come together in this area, and that's been something that we've been quite at the forefront of with the technology companies we work with.
Tell us a little bit more about phishing and malware. I'm sure many people have heard the terms, but I'm not entirely convinced that those are fully aware of the extent of the problem that they cause us. Do you have any stats or horror stories that could help people understand this a little bit more?
It's kind of interesting. We do quite a bit of work with the police, and they usually set up these kind of Q&A sessions by providing a lot of statistics, and they make for pretty damning reading in most cases. So in about 90% of successful cyber attacks, the point of entry is a phishing attack. And a phishing attack is one where an email is sent into an organization, or usually hundreds of emails are sent into the organization. With the busy kind of working practices that everybody has, it's very easy for a user that's unaware of the damage that can be caused to accidentally open an email and then click a link. And at the point at which they do that, some really unpleasant stuff usually gets downloaded onto their desktop and quickly spreads around the network. It's how they take remote control of systems in networks. It's how they plant ransomware that can then spread rapidly around the network. So that's the first thing to be aware of, that phishing attacks, in about 90% of cyber attacks, it's a phishing attack that is the trigger point, and it happens on an industrial scale. The other thing is that on average, it's been determined that organizations detect a breach about 190 days after the breach occurred. And then the real question there is, so what's been going on for that period of nearly 6 months? And during that time, we see backup data being destroyed. We see invoices being redirected. We see people's emails being copied outside of the organization. So these people that are doing this type of stuff are really sophisticated. And every time people find a way of combating it, they simply evolve and develop the techniques that they're using.
Thanks for that, Mark. And obviously with the sort of current focus of working from home, whilst right now we don't have a choice, but I think going forward, more and more people will probably end up working from home. Is there anything really that individuals or companies should be doing to protect themselves from this?
So I think there's 3 or 4 things for sure, Nigel, but if I could maybe just highlight a couple. I think organizations have been really struggling over the last 2 weeks to get people out, get them working at home, get the basics in place first, get them a device, a laptop or a system they can use, get them connected to the internet, give them access to the application so they can start to resume normal working. This project would normally take an IT department weeks, if not months, to plan, and they've been told to get this done in a matter of days. So it's kind of expected that the cybersecurity protections that you'd normally put in place as part of that planning will have to be kind of retrofitted. So there's a few things. I mean, people working at home are definitely going to be more vulnerable. They've got more distractions. They've not got their workers, their colleagues around them. They can't just ask somebody to just check an email for them before they press the button. So they are likely to be more vulnerable and susceptible to things like phishing attacks. So anything that raises awareness, ethical phishing is a good test. I think the other challenge that organisations face, they have to determine whether the users are going to be able to store data on those remote devices, in which case they should really be backing it up. So backup for laptop would be important. In some cases, organisations will allow those users to synchronise the data that they have back into the network. And again, that creates a big vulnerability, because if the user gets a ransomware, these new strains of ransomware onto their desktop, they often don't encrypt the data immediately, but it does infect files. And as it infects files and you store those files back into the network, you're actually helping the hackers to breach the network, and you're effectively planting this ransomware infected files back into the network. And in that case, you need to be scanning data that sits in the network, which is not an obvious thing for you to be doing as you're rolling out laptops to your users for remote working. So there's maybe 2 or 3 things that organizations should be thinking about as a different way of approaching these new threats that will occur as a result of remote workers.
Finally, if there were 3 ways that people working from home could prevent ransomware getting onto their laptops and potentially the company networks, what would you recommend or say they were?
So I think you should be raising awareness. Organisations should be raising awareness for their users of the threats of phishing attack. So what to look out for, what makes an email suspicious. The users are definitely the best form of defence here. It's very difficult to use technology. You end up blocking legitimate emails, and then you create a whole series of different problems there. So raising user awareness in phishing, a phishing threat, how they can look at the email address and check whether or not it's a legitimate email address. There's an awful lot of coronavirus, COVID-19, ransomware type scams and hacking scams that have already hit the market. So definitely an awareness around phishing is useful. And there are some really good resources available on the web to help people raise their own awareness of that. I would say backup of laptops. You got to keep that data protected, and you've got to get a copy of it away from the laptop. And I would say the other thing is to scan network connected file systems at the company end, where you're pushing that data to those files to. They would be the 3 things that I would suggest you could do. There are probably 11 to 15 total things that could be addressing a variety of different threats around remote and home working. But I think if you wanted to try to minimise the likelihood of ransomware, either infecting the devices or propagating around the network, I would say those 3 things: ethical phishing, and training and awareness, backing up laptops, you've got a copy of the data, and scanning for ransomware at the network level on servers that are still inside the corporate. For a full list of my top tips on how to keep remote workers safe and secure against cyber and ransomware attacks, please come and have a look at our website, where you can download a list or read them online.
Thanks, Mark, for those insights. It would be great if our listeners who wanted to make contact with you were able to do that. How might they be able to do that?
Well, they can come to our website at data2vault.com, or they can drop me an email at mark.saville, mark.saville at data2vault.com.
Thank you very much. So that's me, Nigel Davey from SME Needs.
And me, Laura McHarrie at The Hidden Edge. Do make contact with any of us for sound business advice whenever you feel you need it. Oh, and please don't forget to comment on, like, follow, and share this podcast.